So welcome everybody. I'm Vanessa Good, Business Development Manager at Scape, and I work in the south of the country, which is why we're here with Central South today. They have just asked me to remind you that they've got a stand here, G30, downstairs in this building. The Central South is a region of exceptional potential, strategically located at the gateway to the world's fifth largest economy. It's home to over 20% of FTSE 100 companies and more than 10,000 SMEs, reflecting strong confidence in its infrastructure, leadership and future. The region combines world-class connectivity with natural beauty, heritage and innovation, and the universities drive research and talent that power business growth. With Solent-free port status, the Central South has a unique opportunity to build on their strengths, creating jobs, attracting investment and revitalising the coastal communities. From Basingstoke's growth rivalling Manchester and Cambridge to the maritime strengths of Portsmouth and Southampton, the Central South is a region that's ready for the future. And with that, I'll hand over to Caroline Compton-James, our Deputy Chief Exec at Scape, who will chair the panel and lead today's discussion.
Thank you, Vanessa. And welcome everyone to our panel. The start of UK Reef, the sun is shining, and you aren't fatigued yet by too much coffee and bad croissants. So what we're going to focus on for the next hour is a really lively, interesting debate, fueled, I hope, by some really great questions from the floor. You will know that if you are thinking of a question, everyone else is thinking the same thing. So please log on to Slido and get your questions in. Over the course of the next hour, we are going to cover 4 topics that really shine a spotlight on this amazing region. And who better than to discuss those topics with than my guests this morning. So I'm going to turn to my right and I'm going to ask Simon to introduce himself briefly, and then perhaps we can run down the table. So without further ado, let's get stuck in.
Morning. I'm Simon Gill. I lead the growth of Arab South Coast business and also lead the Winchester office. We've been active in the area since about the 1950s, and we've had an office there for just under 40 years. And Arab is committed to the Central South and the South Coast. We're as a result of the growth of our business, we're moving into larger offices in Southampton later this year. But personally, I've been fortunate enough to work in lots of different locations in my 20 years at Arup. And I chose to move to the South Coast because of the fantastic opportunity that it presents, not just for us as a business, but for me and my family. So it's a great place to live.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Lorna Fielker. I'm the leader of Southampton City Council, and I'm here at UK Reef not just to speak on this wonderful panel, but also because we launched our Renaissance vision in February, and that's a master plan for the city centre. Please do come visit us on stand G30 to have a chat.
Thank you. Good morning. Brian Johnston. I'm Chair of the Solent Freeport. And previous to that, I was Chair of the Solent LEP, and the LEP were asked to lead the bid for the Freeport by our partners who are at the table here.
Hello, I'm Dr Paul Harvey and I am leader at Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council. I have been a councillor for the best part of 23 years, but we are 2 years into a brand new administration in Basingstoke with a real ambition to talk to as many of you who are interested in investing in the north of Hampshire and the whole of Hampshire, with my 2 colleagues being the 3 points of the triangle across the whole of Hampshire, Southampton, Portsmouth and Basingstoke, and look forward to talking with you all.
Good morning, Councillor Steve Pitt. I'm the leader of Portsmouth City Council. I also retain responsibility for culture, regeneration and economic development. Particular passion of mine, culturally led regeneration and the sense of place-making in communities, and looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you very much. So, creative industries, the visitor economy, and tourism, and regeneration in all of its guises, covering infrastructure, housing and skills. Through our 4 topics this morning, we are going to demonstrate some real practical, deliverable opportunities within the region, and also whet your appetites on the potential. So I wanted to start with my first question this morning to the panel on why Central South. you will all be here looking at opportunities within this amazing United Kingdom. Why here and why not elsewhere? What are the regional strengths and USPs of the Central South? And I thought that I might start with Brian. There is the really clear vision and purpose to the Solent Freeport, isn't there? What are the opportunities for this particular region?
Within the Freeport, we've got over 400 hectares of tax sites. And for those of you who aren't Freeport experts and who are, because it's complex legislation, these are areas where if you start businesses and employ people, you get 6 different tax breaks, which last up to 2031. And then the region retains the business rates that you would have paid, which are refunded by the government. So for businesses and investors, it pulls together a number of bits of land across our region that have needed redevelopment for some time, and working with our council partners, the Freeport is opening those up with the private sector landowners who currently run those sites. But one of the reasons our Freeport bid was successful is the gateway region aspect. So yes, it creates jobs in the region, but the business case pretty much proved, and the government accepted it, that every job we create in the Solent creates 1 to 1.5 jobs across the wider UK. You know, so when people talk about the Midlands engine or the Northern Powerhouse, you export through Southampton, and most people go on holiday through Portsmouth. So we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're driving the whole national economic growth.
Lorna, for you, what's the opportunity? Why Southampton and Central South?
So why Central South? Part of that is actually we work incredibly well together, particularly at a political level, despite our different ideologies. We are working for a region rather than against each other. We're not in competition. I think for Southampton, there's enormous potential there. We have been low-hanging fruit for a long, long time, but we're now realising the benefits of that, I suppose. This master plan that we've launched will make Southampton probably one of the biggest leisure and entertainment destinations in the southeast of the country. And it's an example again of how we're working together as a city. So we have our Renaissance board, which is created of the major employers and landowners across Southampton, all working together on that one vision. We've got memorandum of understanding with the football club. They're not doing well at football at the moment. They need to diversify. And this is one of the ways that they're doing that. But we've got that vision for the entirety of the city centre. And it's not a today or tomorrow. This is something that's going to be delivered over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So there's a real clear direction of travel that all are signed up for. So that's why I think Southampton, and when Southampton thrives, the rest of the region will also thrive because of what it will bring into it.
And moving further down along the coast to Portsmouth, Steve, the opportunities, the economic potential there.
I agree with everything Lorna's just said around how we work together. I was joking with Paul before we started that you're probably looking at our body language to see whether we genuinely like each other or whether we're just pretending. We do actually get on. You've got a set of leaders at the moment from all political parties and none who are adults, and we're prepared to put aside all political differences in the interests of our region, and that's not something you will find across the rest of the UK. So there are some amazing opportunities in Portsmouth as well. We've got over outline consent for over 2,000 new homes in the north of the city centre. We've got the Summers Orchard project, which has the ability to deliver both PRS and new social housing. And we're already delivering on other council-led initiatives. We've got a new state-of-the-art football hub in the north of the city, which is providing excellent facilities, particularly for young people, to address some of our health and wellbeing challenges. We're about to start work on a new leisure centre and GP surgery in the southeast of the city. We've had investment through heritage funds into refurbishing parks within Portsmouth. So we're a place where things are happening, and we do have a plan. We've got limited land. We're an island. The bulk of the city is 3 miles wide by 4 miles deep, but we know what we want to see happening, and we know that something that Lorna and I often talk about, actually, we want to make sure that regeneration is addressing deprivation. It's really important to all of us that where we are creating change, we are doing it for social reasons as well as economic ones. So those are just a few of the opportunities that we're looking at. Particular passion of mine is culture and creativity and the role that can play, and also that of the tourist economy, but I think we'll come on to that a bit later.
Yes, and then moving inland to the apex of that triangle, Paul, what's the USP?
We're happy to be the apex of the triangle. I'll go that on a day of the week. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got two powerhouses in the south in terms of both Southampton and Portsmouth, as both Lorna and Steve have alluded to. But if you think about the whole of Hampshire, think about the region, you've got Winchester sat between us all, and then you've got Farnborough and Basingstoke in the north. I mean, our GVA is £8 billion just in Basingstoke and Deane. We're running at about 14% GVA at the moment, well past the national average. And that's powerful for us because we're competing with the likes of Cambridge and Oxford and actually the city of Manchester in that league. So drawing that into our region, drawing both what Southampton and Portsmouth can deliver into our region for the values that we share. And I think that's a really important point, that we share those values as a region for the things that we want to see you bring to our region and work with you to bring to our region. So when it comes to social housing, we want socially rented housing. We've got 3,500 houses working with Urban and Civic now being delivered on many downs, something we've really pushed in the last 48 months since we took over at the council. And we've got £300 million worth of inward investment coming in from America into Basingstoke with Great Wolf Resorts, bringing a resort facility, a leisure facility to the town, to the borough. And then there's the other side, and we all work with our partners, for example, SNG or Vivid, to deliver the programmes of social housing that we know our residents need alongside that economic growth that we all know the government want, but we want too. So balancing all of that across the region is really important to us. Location, location, location. It works for each of the three of us.
Simon, you mentioned Winchester and sitting right in the middle. From Arup's perspective, a national organisation, what's the USP for you within the region?
I think there are lots, but I think the three that sort of jump out at me are around talent, connection with nature, and the connectivity of the place. But when we look at talent, we've heard that the region's got a number of world-class universities. And they really they're operating at a global level. They're innovating at a global level. They're attracting talent to the region from all parts of the globe. Southampton, it's sort of one of the top 100 universities in the UK. It's a Russell Group university. To give you one example of great innovation that's coming out of that, you've got the Optical Electronic Research Centre, which has been developing, low-loss fibres, which are really powering the internet globally. So they're contributing globally. And Luminosity, who are a kind of spin-off of the OCR, have been bought by Microsoft in the last sort of 3-4 years, Microsoft Azure. So, they're creating technology and innovation at a scale that's globally relevant and contributing to global innovation. Portsmouth University is another great example where they are developing. They've won a kind of an international award for AI and sensors, which is allowing children with high levels of disability to actually access and use a wheelchair that they've not been able to ever use before. So from a talent perspective, I think there's a huge attraction. There's a huge sort of USP there. I think in terms of nature, we're so fortunate to have access to the South Downs and the New Forest National Park. It's so important from a quality of life perspective, but from an Arup perspective, it's brilliant in terms of retention of staff and attraction of staff to the area. It's a real recreational hotspot for families to come. So people looking to move out of city centres into areas, more affordable areas where they can bring up their family and nature. It's a fantastic opportunity. But, I also see, from a nature perspective, those sort of regions that are really connected to nature, such as ours, really prioritise sustainability. So investors are looking for those sustainable, environmentally responsible opportunities to investing, and I think we've got those in abundance. And then I think lastly, in terms of connectivity, we've got great local networks connecting, that allow businesses to operate efficiently, but to allow talent to move into the area, and also, with our airports and our ports, we've that global connectivity is there, and that also not just drives trade, but it also drives that sort of collaboration piece with the rest of the world.
It all sounds too good to be true. But I think what's come across and probably preempted my second question was that sort of political alignment. It would be remiss of me not to mention devolution and local government review. There is a lot of, well, probably the largest political change in terms of legislation happening in our lifetimes. And so I wonder how, as a region, you are managing that political change and all the opportunity that it brings, but we know that in change there's sometimes a little bit of misalignment. So how is the region focusing on that economic and political alignment that isn't just a good soundbite? That would be my challenge to the panel this morning. Who is going to be brave enough to answer that first?
I'll talk about local government reorganisation
Thank you,
first.
Lorna.
So I really believe in this process. I don't think that having two tiers of government makes much sense for residents, and actually it's really difficult for developers and investments into regions. They don't know who they need to speak to. So it makes sense from that perspective if you take politics out of it. You bring the politics back into it and the chief execs who work for those organisations back into it. Actually, it's really difficult because you're going to find yourself with a lot of chief execs looking for jobs and a lot less councillors out there. So it's like it can feel like an existential crisis in some ways, but we know we need to do it. And what we are doing very well, actually, across the region is we are meeting, all of us are meeting together. Sadly, Hampshire have walked away and they're doing their own thing. But in general, the rest of us are working together to make sure that we create something that looks right for the residents that we're serving. And we don't bring politics into those meetings at all. They're really they're well moderated, well chaired, and we're all getting to have our say. I think the challenge is making sure that alongside that, we're keeping business running as usual, because we've still got all the general services we need to deliver, and we still got my amazing, beautiful vision for Southampton that I want to deliver. We still need to get that done. So we're making sure that there's capacity within the system in order for that to take place. Devolution, I mean, this is the most exciting opportunity that we have got on the South Coast for such a long period of time, well, across the entirety of Hampshire and Solent. So when I think about my wonderful, beautiful vision for Southampton, that's going to be no good if we can't deliver it. And what we need to deliver it is we need to make sure we've got the right skills in the region, and a combined authority helps us do that by bringing down more money from government in order to make sure we are investing in the right skills for those new jobs that are coming, to build those new homes, whatever infrastructure it is. So two very, very big things that are happening. We need to, for you, make sure that alongside that, we are continuing to just deliver well, make sure that our economic development teams are working well, make sure that tourism functions are working well, and we're very committed to doing that. I'll let my other two colleagues give their view. They might differ, despite what we all said at yesterday morning's meeting.
I don't think we will. It's fascinating, isn't it, the whole process? Because government are determined this is going to happen. The mayors are coming. They are going to arrive next year for us at the rate things are going, and then local government reform will follow. And it's fascinating. You put 15 leaders in a room and ask them to discuss their own abolition of their own authorities and try and get consensus going. It's an interesting experience. But the 13 of us in Hampshire who are working together, still working together, we are working together, and we're number crunching, we're data analysing, we're going through the process of how could this thing look, because the idea of something under one roof for our residents who don't distinguish, it's the council, be it their experience of potholes or their experience of needing jobs with economic growth. You know, it's the council. How many of you distinguish where you live between the authorities that you may have if you're in a two-tier area? It's the reality of what does it mean to somebody's life. So for us, it's about tackling those big issues. So the housing agenda that many of the districts and the cities share, what do we do around social care is a huge piece of this puzzle. What do we do for children's services and education? These are massive issues that we're all going to have to grapple with. But the opportunity for service redesign, to think about things differently, to achieve a better service, is what's on the table. The question for government, for all of us, I think, is how they then fund local government. Are they going to put the money that we need to be successful after this? And it's going to be very interesting to see, because Surrey goes first next year. And they are right at the vanguard of this. And those authorities are trying to grapple with the debt issue that many in local government are still reeling with. So it's not as easy as it sounds. It really isn't. But the enthusiasm and the desire to want to make it work, I think, is there.
There are two very distinct bits, and we're always really clear when we're talking about this that devolution is one thing, local government reorganisation is something else. On the devolution piece, we're all aligned that this is the right ask. We had actually a much more ambitious ask, Lorna, didn't we, than we are currently expecting to receive. But that's because the government has decided to do this at pace, and I'm kind of calling it devolution in a box. So you get a starter kit, and if you do the starter kit well, then you get promoted and you get the opportunity to do more. So we're really determined to get the starter kit right and hit the ground running, because we all have shared aspirations around where those further opportunities are for our region, and we want to be accessing those as soon as possible. So there's unanimity on this. Everybody's working very closely together, and we want to make sure that every single opportunity that is there under the devolution process is coming into the Hampshire and Isle of Wight geography. Local government reorganisation is much more challenging, and it's actually different for every council. Paul's got different issues than I have, Lorna's got different issues than I have, and when you've got, originally we started 15 councils in the room, you can imagine how difficult that is. It's difficult enough getting your own council to work together, never mind get everybody else's to work with each other. But we are. Yeah. And the way we're doing that is through respect, and understanding that we have different issues and different problems that we want to resolve, but that the best way to get the answers is to work together. There's no good setting up new adults and children's social care services for a potential new Basingstoke-based unitary unless we are learning from the experiences of Portsmouth and Southampton as part of that process to make sure that we get that right from the very beginning. Because as an area, we are an ecosystem and we do need to thrive. So not just the three of us on the panel, but everyone else as well, with the exclusion of the county and one district, are working really closely. We actually probably see more of each other than we do our own political groups at the moment. But that's been a good thing, because there's a lot of understanding that's now developed. So there are challenges. I mean, Local Government Organisation Association says that by 2028, 2029, there is an £8 billion funding gap just to retain local services at their current levels. So that figure's not going to change. It's not going to go away. You can reduce it to some extent through some level of reorganisation, but the fundamental problem remains that we need more money to deliver the services that you all value and that all of our residents value. So we are working within that context. There will be some efficiencies. Service redesign is a good opportunity, but the fundamental is this all needs to get funded properly. And that's Portsmouth's challenge, because we are already a unitary, so we don't have that two-tier issue. So we're going to keep fighting that corner, but we need to do it from within the tent, because we need to be working with our neighbours and our colleagues across the area to make sure that we do this as well as we possibly can. Because if we were to deliberately create a weak link in this process, everyone will suffer, and collectively we've signed up to saying that can't happen.
Thank you all for your candour. Brian, you are delivering amongst this. What are your thoughts and your perspectives?
Well, I was actually going to say that Freeport's are business-led. I mean, we're a partnership. I hesitate to say we're private sector-led, because that implies there's some conflict, and there isn't. We've got businesses and the local authorities on our board. But our sites span 5 councils at the moment, and if you take our outer boundary, it spans 9 councils in the south. We work absolutely fine. There is absolutely no problem. We're working effectively as a central south region already on this. And I know, because I work closely with the leaders around the table and the leaders of the other 5 and 9 councils, that this isn't going to change. So what I would say you're asking for that isn't just a soundbite. From the business perspective, this local democracy change is rightly in the hands of these elected leaders around us. But the business community carries on. The working of the Freeport won't alter through this system. Obviously, as business, we welcome the increased investment that having a devolved authority will bring. But in terms of if you want to invest in the south, that's what the Freeport's there for, and we've already been set up as a business collaboration so that this doesn't get in the way.
There is something that kind of segues quite nicely into our next topic, which is really around the opportunity to deliver in the region. So reminding ourselves of those three areas of the creative industries, visitor economy and tourism, and regeneration, infrastructure, housing and skills. What are the practical opportunities, the visible opportunities that are perhaps a little bit more progressed through the planning systems, that perhaps have a little bit of funding behind them, that you are able to share with our audience today to really kind of bring some sort of practical, tangible opportunities forward for investors, so that when our audience leave the room this morning, not only have they listened to wonderful, kind of interesting debate, but there's also something quite tangible to take away and to take back to the offices, possibly on Monday, once you've had Friday to recover. Who would like to go for it? Well, actually, I know. I would like to start with Steve and to talk about that creative industries, because it's probably something I'm not as familiar with. I can talk to the built environment, but tell me about the creative industries, Steve.
So I've already used the word ecosystem today, and it's even more relevant when we start talking about cultural creative industries, because it is also about heritage and it is also about tourism, and they are interdependent on each other, and when they thrive, everyone else thrives too. Because there's a parlance that's been used in sort of local government discussions for years around, and pretty much everyone's vision or corporate plan would have included it at some stage, and that's live, work and visit or play. And often the visit piece is seen as a tourism piece, but it shouldn't be. It's about people and the experience that they have by living in a community. So no business is going to locate to an area where their employees are not going to have great things to do and places to visit and places to relax and a hospitality trade that's thriving. Who wants to live there? Nobody wants to locate to an area equally with poor schools. So, and if those schools exist, do they want them to be just delivering the core curriculum, or do they want them to be delivering meaningful opportunities for children to expand their lives and experience cultural opportunities which will give them confidence and make them more employable? All of these things are interdependent. Tourism's a key part of it, because an awful lot of cultural activity only exists because people come to visit. So it's absolutely crucial, but they need to work together. And also opportunity, I'll be talking about this in more detail later today, but opportunity that heritage offers within that. So we have some big numbers in our area at the moment. And I deliberately wrote them down to incorporate Portsmouth and Southampton's numbers, just to prove that we think about things together. So combined, the two cities, our stay spend from visitors is in excess of £430 million a year. And that's just the direct spend on staying in the area. And our day trip spend combined is £0.9 billion per year. So these are big, big numbers. And with the new local visitor economy partnership that we've signed up to, which will be Hampshire wide, an opportunity to do things strategically. So bits of the area have worked very effectively and well on tourism and the cultural and creative industries for years, but it's fair to say that some parts of our area that's less true. So we want to properly level up and do it ourselves. We don't need government to do it. We can work together. We can promote the area. My challenge is always, if you come to Portsmouth or Southampton or that central south region and you base yourself somewhere, you can fill 2 weeks really, really easily within an hour's travel time of wherever you choose to locate yourself. That is not really true of anywhere else in the country. You can be out in the countryside within minutes of being in a city centre. That's not true everywhere in the country. You've got 3 airports to get you here or take you away again. You've got 2 major ports with thriving cruise industries. So there are lots and lots of opportunities, both for wider tourism growth, but also for expanding that local visitor offer and making sure our communities have quality places to live.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on creative industries?
Just to highlight for this year, so the New York Times every year produces a list of the top places to visit in the world, and this year our region was number 1. Listed in the New York Times, and that's because of Jane Austen's 250th birthday and all the work we put in around celebrating that. That's got to be strong for our region. If we can do it for that, we can do that for other things as well, and we can be on that New York Times number 1 list again next year, the year after.
So that flows quite nicely into the visitor economy and the tourism. You've got these amazing infrastructure assets to draw people into the region, once they're there, Simon, you touched earlier on the beautiful places and green and open spaces. Paul, I wonder from your perspective, anything to contribute around visitor economy and tourism?
It's that wonderful combination, isn't it, as colleagues have already alluded to, of thriving centres that can drive the economy, and within 5 minutes of leaving them, you're in the beautiful Hampshire countryside. And from Downton Abbey to Bombay Sapphire to, I don't know, Roman Silchester, all of these are on our doorsteps. We've all got this rich history. Winchester, there's this rich history. The village that's in the middle of us, there's that rich history that we've all got that shows what a good place it is to live and to do business. Because it's also about quality of life in all of this as well, and I think that's really important. So, our satisfaction rating, 89% satisfaction rating from people that live in our area. That says it all in terms of people who move, they stay, they raise families, they make businesses. And it's interesting talking to business forums who say, I didn't know, and I'm so glad I came. I've got a skilled workforce that don't have to travel and commute that far because it is easy to get around the region. And on top of all of that, on top of everything else, we look into the Thames Valley, we look beyond our region in terms of location into the Midlands, and we're 45 minutes from London. So just think about that in the context of all that's on our doorstep that is working well for us, but also for everybody who wants to live in our area.
But we know that there's more to do, isn't there?
Yes, a lot more to do.
Particularly around, I'm going to just drop a few things in there, perhaps housing, connectivity, roads, rail. The opportunity is there to really elevate the region. And so I think that brings us nicely onto the third area of how we tackle infrastructure and housing, that place-making, place-shaping. We're at UK Reef. You've got an industry of built environment professionals here ready to do the doing and to support your region and the organisations that you represent in really in helping change people's lives, from housing through to all of that infrastructure. So what are some of the practical things that we can look forward to supporting you on?
For us in Southampton, housing is really key, and that's housing actually at all price points. At the moment, my council tax, average council tax is sort of like Band B, which is very, very low. I need to get some more aspirational housing in the city, and that's important. One, not to just raise the income for the local authority, which is obviously always welcome, but actually it's to make sure the people who are doing the really good jobs in Southampton are living in Southampton, because at the moment we've got a wages gap between those who commute in and those who live in the city, and we need to address that because that's part of the deprivation issue. So I want to have more aspirational housing, but I also need to have more affordable housing as well. We've got 8,000 people on our waiting list, and we have a stock of 18,000 homes. Those 18,000 homes are actually in pretty poor condition at the moment, so we're bringing forward a new housing strategy to look at how we regenerate all of our stock. Now, we know that that's not a job we can do on our own. Actually, we've not been very good at building and regeneration ourselves, so we're looking to work with a broad range of other people, not just registered providers, but actually there's a lot of really interesting public-private partnerships going on now to deliver affordable housing, so we'll absolutely be bringing forward those plans and saying, please come talk to us and come and work with us to help deliver that new housing we so desperately need just within Southampton, let alone within the wider region.
Thank you. Any other comments, observations?
I mean, for us, it's interesting in terms of unlocking many down with urban and civic and having a partnership relationship where you see 3,500 homes coming forward on the first major parcel of that land, and what it means to the growth agenda I get, the balancing act with infrastructure that we need, where our public services need to be in tune, and that whole placemaking thing. This is not just about conveyor belt house building, because we have got to think about the whole piece of how you make a community actually work in the context of not wanting to destroy the natural environment, but use that as a vehicle to achieve the best quality you can. So for us, it's about quality housing that delivers affordability, that genuinely is affordable. So for us, social rent is everything. Affordable rent doesn't ticket. It doesn't work in our area. It has to be social rent. We want aspirational housing for those families that want to get that first foot on the ladder. We recognise that comes with high streets. It comes with local industry that is about people with good jobs that can meet the cost of living crisis. We've just got our footfall back in our town centre back to the pre-COVID level. I mean, that's a real statement of intent. We're filling the shops it's that notion of things are beginning to move. So, okay, things are beginning to move, then how do we work together to fulfil some of these challenges around infrastructure that we do have? And when it comes to that, it's also working with our public sector partners. So when it comes to GPs, and it comes to schools and all of that. And we are best placed to help piece that together. We can be the glue that holds all of this together, but it takes a proper partnership approach and a willingness to think innovatively about how we create places. And I think that's the agenda.
Agree. I think for us, we've got two really significant schemes that, unusually for a city centre, have got no public opposition. So we're not fighting battles about trying to sell the story. We've done that really, really well. So the City Centre North scheme has a bit more than outline, a fairly detailed outline, consent for over 2,000 homes. And it's an opportunity for a community with a green lung in it, in a really densely populated and built up city. And we're really keen to talk to partners about how we can develop that out. It's a very livable community, and it will bring life and activity back into the city centre, which, like many city centres, is very dark and quiet after the shops close, and more of the shops close. So we need to get that mix back on the high street, and we're starting to see that happen. So we're really keen to see that community back there. My own great-grandparents lived above a shop in the heart of our high street, and that's why the high street thrived, because people lived there, and we need to see that happening again. And with our Summers Orchard scheme, that was probably the best you could do in terms of resident engagement. They actually had a resident panel throughout the entire process, really high level of community support for that scheme. But the issue that we all face across the country is exactly the same, and that is that because rents didn't track properly for about 6 or 7 years, they're starting to come back now. The government started to say they're going to rise at CPI +1 throughout the course of this Parliament. That's not addressing the lag, and the amount of Homes England grant that's available to close the gap isn't enough, or is being asked to be spent over too short a period. So we do need a review of that really, really quickly. We should be able to do some very quick and dirty sums and say, is this housing needed? Is it the right thing for that community? Has it been designed well, and is it broadly a supportable scheme without too many whistles and bells? Is this the quality development we want to see? If it is, and there's a funding gap because the future borrowing from tenants' rents can't be secured through an HRA, then the government need to close the gap through grant funding. And if they do that, then we might just build a good chunk of those 1.5 million homes during this Parliament. But if they don't, we absolutely definitely won't. And we all want to see housing delivered. It's just as important for us in Portsmouth as it is for Lorna in Southampton and for Paul in Basingstoke.
I've heard the word partnership come through loud and clear. Simon, I wonder, from your perspective as a partner within the region, what does that partnership look like for you?
I think ARP is a multidisciplinary organisation. It's got a broad range of skills that it can offer. I think, message to developers, investors, we do have the skills on the ground to really support the ambition and the things that we need to address, whether it be integrated city planning and design to create cohesive, future-ready communities, or whether it's about delivering critical infrastructure in terms of transport, utilities, or digital infrastructure, that support that growth and that connectivity as well. At Arup, I think sustainable development's at the heart of everything that we do. So whether that's building in, green credentials into buildings, whether it's making them future climate proof, or nature-based solutions for buildings. There's a range of things that we can do as partners to support the ambition for the region.
I think my takeaway from the partnership piece is that you've got a range of experts in the audience who are able to support and help you realise your vision, whether it be sustainability or great place shaping or utilising the experience of those supply chain partners 2 or 3 layers down. And I think I hope you don't mind, audience, if I speak on your behalf to say to please draw upon the expertise of the colleagues in the room, because we are all here to support and to help you deliver. I'm particularly interested in some specific opportunities, Brian, around the Freeport. For the investors who are in the room, what have they got to bring to you, to look to you to kind of build that partnership and continuing in that partnership theme?
As I said earlier, the way our Freeport sites are distributed means they've all got different specialisations. I'll finish on maritime, but we've got what's called the Navigator Quarter to the north of Southampton Airport, which is next to the main rail line, it's next to the airport, it's just next to Southampton, and it's about 50 hectares of developable land there, which is coming online anytime now. It'll have an air side, it'll have a rail front side, and it's going to be a fantastic thing for our region. It's something the Freeport's done in some land living there. We've all known that land's needed to be done for a while. We've also got major sites around Southampton Water and the Maritime. And why would you invest there? Because we have got specialisation in maritime. Obviously, we do many things in the Central South, but 20% of our GVA is maritime. And clusters drive expertise and drive investment. And a long time ago, we stopped arguing about who's got the biggest of something because it looks like we're competition. But actually, if you take the Solent, we are the world's preeminent maritime site. So lots of things have got one thing. But we have world-class container port, a world-class cruise port, a world-class military base, world-class research with Southampton University, the National Oceanography Centre, the test tanks in Kinetic. We've got a world-class leisure sector. Everyone knows about Cows Week. The America's Cup bids came from there. And finally, we've got a natural environment, which is almost unsurpassed, you know, from Chichester Harbour in the east through the Solent to Christchurch and Poole Harbour in the west. So if you're looking to base things around maritime, we have the expertise in the Central South, and you're building on what is the world's preeminent maritime cluster, because nobody else in the world does it across all those sectors.
Thank you. Any further opportunities for investors to be mindful of around particular regions?
And taking that example of what's going on the maritime side down on the Solent, you then take that to Farnborough, you take that to Basingstoke with our high-tech, med-tech, life sciences sectors, where, for example, you've got major players like Blatchford's in Basingstoke who have just pumped 15 million into their factory, into their business. All the prosthetics that you may have seen at the Paralympics coming out of that company based in our region. Think about the relationships we're talking about in terms of defence sector, AWE, right their way through to Farnborough's aerospace technologies and space technologies. All of that is part of our regional economic offer. And it links, because those industries north and south through the region link up the M3 and beyond into the Thames Valley. And that's our absolute strength, our ability to draw that in. Our desire for our town centre regions, both Southampton and Portsmouth clearly, but Basingstoke too. We want to see a linkage with our business sectors, our business parks linked into our town centre. We're ambitious for regeneration of our town centre. It's all there for a relationship to be forward with the right partner who can bring that social value that we're all looking for. So we want the relationships, you know, come knocking on our door. We want to have those conversations with you, and let's let's unlock some of this potential. That's what we're all about. I like the slogan, region of opportunity. It really does kind of say it all, to be honest. But we've got to make it happen. There's no good talking about it. We want people to come and make this happen in our places.
Well, you've come to the right place, haven't you?
I hope so.
UK Reef.
We're going to test
Thank
it.
you.
We'll find out.
Thank you so much. Those were the themes that I wanted to explore this morning. So we do have some time for Q&A. We've had a few questions come in on Slido. So I am going to turn to those. They aren't in, well, the order, I'm going to turn to them as the order that they came in. So Steve Jolly says, flash forward to day one in post for the New Hampshire and the Solent Mayor. What one thing would you like to put at the top of their to-do list? Who would like to comment on that?
I'm quite happy to comment on that. I don't think there is one thing you want to on the top of their to-do list. I think you want to see a mayor who's very clear about developing an industrial strategy for the region that includes culture, that includes housing, that includes skills. I think we want to make sure there is a clear joined-up strategy for delivering housing across there. So you want to see a good housing strategy being put in place, and I think we need to see something very clear come through that actually talks to well-being of the place. I think that's so important because, like Steve was saying earlier, there's not a lot of point in everything we do. We're not making a difference to people's lives. So I would really like to see a mayor that's coming forward and putting that first. And that's why I think actually the culture piece is so important, because it's places that make people healthy, and it's culture that creates those places. It's the nice things to do. What is it you say, Steve? The things that you do when you're not at work. It's so important. Be that going to the football, even when you're losing. I went to see my first Saints match. I thought I ought to do that. We lost, obviously, but I really enjoyed hearing the culture of that, to the festivals, all those sorts of things that happen across our region. That's got to be primary, because that's the reason that people will invest in our region if we are a great place to be. So that's what I would want to see. Very clear strategies coming out from those people who will be putting themselves forward for people to put X next to their name next May.
I think that's a lovely reflection, isn't it? We've been talking a lot about the doing and a lot about the structure to enable the doing, but I think you've just really illustrated the why we are all here to support in the delivery. Yeah. Any other comments on that question?
I mean, for me, it's down to being. It's going to be somebody who has the ability to have a collaborative leadership approach, because you're going to have. We're all talking about potentially 4 mainland unitaries for Hampshire plus the Isle of Wight. And the context of that is those leaders of those new authorities are going to need somebody who is willing to work with them. If this becomes a personality contest rather than a policy debate, that could be the danger we fall into. I mean, Steve's right, this is devolution in a box. Here are the powers government are giving to this person. And they're going to have to make that work with all of us, hopefully, in terms of where the elections may take whoever is in charge of those authorities. Yeah. So you're going to have 5 new leaders of authorities working with a mayor to deliver this whole agenda. And if it is personality focused, I think they will lose. It won't work. But if it's collaborative leadership, I think potentially there's something here that could be very powerful for us as a region, alongside all we see going on in other places. Now, your Andy Burnhams and your Sadiq Khans of this place. The South needs that, and I think we can get it. But we have to get the policy bit right, not just rely on the personality bit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think the bit that often gets missed when we're talking about mayors, because they're a name and a face, and Andy Burnham's obviously a good example, devolution works well when the unitary leaders who work with the mayor are able to speak with a collective voice and to steer the mayor and agree with the mayor. A mayor who comes in and starts telling people what to do, it will go precisely nowhere, because there is a cabinet of sorts that sits underneath the mayor and alongside them, and that they will be steering policy. So the one thing I would want them to do on day one is to pick up the instruction manual that we as local authority leaders will have written for them by then and get on and start delivering it. Because it's not up to them to set an agenda, it's up to them to listen to what we have said through all our networks across the whole of the Hampshire geography as to our priorities. Now, obviously, we have things that sit against the devolution in a box themes around skills and transport and inward investment, but we also have, as I alluded to earlier on, a very big shopping list of other stuff. Culture and creative industries is one of them that we want to see actioned. So we're not interested in somebody coming in and then going on a giant ego trip. What we want is somebody who's going to work collaboratively with us, and it will be all of our jobs to make sure that whoever the candidates are, we're asking them the right questions to make sure that on day one they are hitting the ground running and working with us as a team to deliver for our area. And I'm optimistic that that can happen.
And I actually think this is a unique opportunity. While this is being set up for the first time in this region, you get to influence the direction of travel for that, how that mayor will work for years and years and years to come by what happens at the start. And that means we all get a voice to influence that. And that includes you as well. So when those candidates are putting their names forward, whoever gets elected is going to want to be delivering something really quickly and showing that they're having impact. So if you're able to go to them and say, do you know what, this fits in with your strategies, we can deliver on that for you, actually that can help you shape the future agenda for whatever comes for the next mayor and the mayor after that and the mayor after that. It's a really unique time.
The value of and the power of democracy. Any other observations or comments?
I think from a business point of view, I'd like to see that mayor go to government and say, you promised us more investment, now we've got one, let's do it. Lorna and I were listening to Tracy Braben earlier talking about getting 12 billion for a local tram system. And what we'd like that in the south, wouldn't we? There's no lack of ambition from all the leaders to put an integrated transport system in place. It's just without those kind of injections of 12 billion, we can't realise what we need to do. And then the other part of the infrastructure we need desperately to sort out is electricity and power. I know most regions are like this, but you go past Southampton Port most days and see ships running. It's not because they will like running their engines, it's because there isn't enough power in the central south to cope with all the cruise ships in a port on a Saturday. So they have to run their engines. And we desperately need some coordinated investment on this.
Could I just add in that when we sat back and reviewed the position after the local enterprise partnerships were dissolved, we kind of wanted to articulate the scale of our ask as local authorities. So the work that went on between Lorna and myself and Phil, the leader on the Isle of Wight, wanted to put some kind of figure on it, and it was £735 million of inward investment that we want for the key things that we need to be delivered. Now, we're actually looking across the whole of Hampshire here. So this is a north of £1 billion, significantly north of £1 billion that we're saying we need. So £30 million a year, which was what the figure that's kind of previously been floated around for mayoral authority budget, is just not going to cut it. So it's really important that we are all working together and with that mayor and through that seat at the Council of Nations and Regions that the government has set up, that we're making that argument very, very strongly. And that needs a big evidence base, but it also, as has already been mentioned, needs all of you to be part of that conversation as well, because it's not just local authority leaders that are going to need to make the argument. You need to be where the affordability is an issue. You need to be backing this up. When you know that viability doesn't work, you need to be articulating that case and recruiting us and working with us, because together we can have a voice that's strong enough to make a difference. But if everybody's only arguing their own corner, we won't.
It's true.
I'm going to draw that question to a close. Thank you very much for your contributions. We're going to turn to a little bit of a more granular question. How can town centres like Bournemouth thrive again? Tourism is falling and urban deprivation is creeping in as people don't want to come and visit. Now, I think we've covered that a little bit around some of the green shoots of seeing thriving communities. What do you think some of the first policy issues that need to be implemented to see that starting to happen more broadly across the region?
I think it's taking a step back and having a conversation about what is a town centre for. A town centre isn't just a shopping centre. It's not just a retail hub. We have to think about what community means in the town centre. What does living in the town centre mean? What does transport into and out of the town centre look like? What do we talk about when we talk about climate change and ecological issues? When you're thinking about greening a town centre, what does that mean? So this placemaking thing we were talking about earlier is as relevant to town centre regeneration as ever. And I think the retail offer changes, it grows. And like I said, we've taken our footfall in Basingstoke back to pre-COVID levels. We are filling shops, we're seeing leases taken, the investment levels are really good. But how do you draw people into more than just going shopping and living? And permitted development is a problem. And we need the government to step up here and help us with the permitted development that doesn't deliver the quality residential we're looking for. We want genuine conversations about a planning-led approach to delivering a town centre, thriving on the basis of what they used to be, which was the hubs of the places, not just retail meccas. That's not what it's into. It isn't just the spaceship that lands from outer space as a great... I mean, Festival Place for us is amazing, and the investors that have come in recently, we see Festival Place sold, and they've come in with that entire attitude of let's make this a place for the community. And it's such the place to start to regenerate in that sense. Redefine the word.
I'm going to lead on just quickly to another question where I think there's a nice synergy. As a region, we need to deliver. What do you need from us to help you do that? I think that plays quite nicely onto your point a moment ago. So what do you need from the audience to help you deliver?
We need honest conversations about what the challenges actually are. I mean, I've already talked about some of them. We know that the rents that we can get in through the HRA don't cover the cost of the borrower. We know that the grant's not sufficient. But the messages we're getting back from government are we need to sort out planning law. Well, not really. No, we don't. Because there are hundreds of thousands of consented schemes all over the country not being built out. So we need to address the why aren't they being built out. And that is for in almost all of those cases around social and affordable housing. It's for the reasons I've already stated. But it's also because I think we've got a lot of schemes that were consented when the world looked very different. You know, the world has changed. There's a reason why it's BC, before COVID. It's a different landscape out there now, and I think there's more drive and enthusiasm from local government leaders to get this right. So if people are sat on consented schemes that they know they're never actually going to build out in reality, then start again, and maybe start that next time around with the local authority at the very beginning. It's always frustrating for us, I think, as local authority leaders, when a scheme comes in for planning permission and there's been no previous consultation or discussion with us about it at all. And yet we're on the ground, we're in those communities. We know when something's not going to work. And we also know that if a scheme comes forward and it's got thousands of metres of retail space in it because there's a legacy local plan policy that says it needs to be there, we just might be able to help and come up with something that is actually a productive use for that space, so that you don't get pushed back at a planning committee who know that nobody's going to rent those units, but it is policy compliant, and actually have these conversations at the very earliest stages so that we can be part of that process. It's not about playing the numbers game and getting the consent. It's about getting the right consent and getting those communities invested and supporting change rather than opposing it, because there is always going to be that NIMBY feeling amongst a big chunk of the community. Yet we know that when things actually start to happen, suddenly the dial switches and people are enthusiastic about it. So working with us more closely around narrative and partnership right from the very beginning works.
Lorna.
We are all part of something called Key Cities, which is a collection of cities and towns of our sort of sizes. And we're undertaking a piece of research at the moment about house building. And there's a real issue that needs to be talked about, and we need to find what the reality is, because there's these two very different perceptions. You know, Steve will talk from a local authority side. We will say that it's not planning that's the issue. I mean, we've got 4,000 homes with permission in Southampton that aren't being built. From a developer's perspective, they'll say that planning is the issue, and we have to find actually what is the reality of that, because there's going to be something in between, and until we really address that problem, each side will be blaming each other rather than us then working together and starting to be really innovative. We live in a different world, and that world keeps getting more and more different, actually. So hopefully the research which we'll be publishing later in the year will help resolve some of those tensions, and we can start to have different conversations about how we work really successfully together, and there isn't a blame game. But I'm actually fed up with government saying it is the planning system, because it's not helping us with working well together to do what we want to do, which for us is build more homes or more different types of infrastructure, and for you to do what it is that you do, get those things built, show a good product, and actually, you know, you make your money at the end of the day. That's what you're there for. We shouldn't shy away from that.
Thank you. And Paul, observations from yourself?
I think it's that interesting point about local accountability. We are democratically elected to represent our communities. Our communities need growth, but growth that meets their needs. So the whole context around the planning system, long screwdriver, government comes out with planning and infrastructure bill, comes out with targets that aren't realistic. We've got 7,000 unbuilt planning permissions in Basingstoke and Dean. I want to see them built before I start building any more green fields. But I'm going to have to build on green fields and in the town centre to meet the government's targets. Now, you justify that to local people who don't see those houses coming through because for a variety of reasons. So let's get the toolbox out. Let's talk about what the issue is as to why those aren't coming forward. Let's talk about the opportunities that exist for selling to residents, the opportunity of where that growth will meet their housing need, where it will meet their jobs, where it will meet their families' needs, and so on. Let's make this about them and bring them with us on this journey to justify why the growth is needed, but also that it will actually make a difference to their lives. And then the siren voices that are off to the left and the right become more difficult because they're not getting the currency that they are at the moment. And don't forget, we've got these debates on our extremes taking place at the moment. And that's not a good place for us to be in. And the way we address all of that is by us proving that we can actually deliver change. And that's a well-used word, isn't it? But meaningful change to people's lives. That's what we're all about. So let's do it. Let's do this. Let's work together. Let's have a partnership. Let's have a conversation, but make it real. And so 7,000 extant planning permissions in Basingstoke and Dean is shameful. The extant planning permissions in my colleagues, it's shameful. So let's resolve it. I'm into solutions. I want solutions to the issues we have. And you have the innovation and the ability to help us.
Solutions, innovation, partnership, collaboration, trust. I think the message is loud and clear. Before you know it, we've come to the end of our session. In the words of newscasters, you all ooze stamina. Thank you so much for your contribution, for your candour. It's been a fantastic discussion. What an amazing way to start UK Reef. I wish you all a fantastic rest of day, and do come and continue the conversation at the end of the session. With that adieu, would you help me thank my guests? Thank you.